Hey, Gina, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hey, Gina.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. This is a first for me having two people interview me, so I'm excited.
Well, you know, we're all about setting trends over here at the His and Her Money Show. So we're super glad that you were able to do this because you have information that can help a whole lot of people. And so we were super excited that you were able to make this interview happen. So before we get into all of your advice, can you just take a moment and introduce yourself to everyone and let them know what you're all about?
I can definitely do that. So Gina Horkey from HorkeyHandbook.com. I started this whole crazy journey back in 2014 on tax day. I was fed up with personal finance and people calling and wanting us to fax their 1099s and all that jazz. No, that part wasn't really that bad, but it was that day that I remember because it's just a significant day here in the US and in the job that I had, that I started looking into other stuff. And the first foray I came across was actually freelance writing. And at the time I had a 10-month-old baby, and then our son was like 2.5-ish. And my husband had just quit his job maybe 8 months before that to stay at home when our daughter was born. So 10 months, I guess, if you do the math, that would make more sense, right? So he just the year before had quit his job. I was in a self-employed capacity, so we didn't have corporate benefits or anything like that anymore. And I started this side hustle because I wanted to change careers myself. Perfect timing when your husband just quit his job and you still have a baby at home, right? Makes a lot of sense. I had a lot of motivation. I had a huge why, but that was really the draw as I looked into my future and I was like 30 more years doing just this. Even if I could be really successful by whatever those standards were, by making a lot of money and growing a good book of business and working with clients, which I enjoyed that part very much. I just didn't enjoy the medium of the client work that I was doing. And so I wanted something different that I was more passionate about.
So how did you figure out what type of business, that you wanted to actually go into? I know that you stumbled upon something in regards to, what you're doing now, but how did you transition into that?
So I think everybody thinks you have this big master plan and that, you like break down the goals and you just tackle one thing at a time. And that's all and well, but not usually how it happens. You start doing something. And for me, it was freelance writing because I had a strong interest in writing. I had written like a first draft of a novel and, played around with it as a hobby for a long time. And I didn't really understand that you could actually get paid to do it online, writing blog posts and articles and white papers and all of that stuff without having like a full-time writing job or a journalism degree, because I didn't have those things. I just had a real strong passion for it and an interest. And I can actually write better than I speak most of the time because you can edit yourself. It's great. So that's what I started on my path. And then it opened up this door in this whole world of online business, which is amazing, by the way. It seems intimidating because there's a lot to get to know when you like set up a website or start a blog or all these tech components. But once you realize really what's out there, it's very fun and interesting because it's so fast paced and it changes very quickly and you get to know people all around the world. And that's been kind of my favorite part.
It had to be scary though, because you mentioned that your husband had just left his job. So he was a stay-at-home parent at that time. You had a pretty good career going, but you knew you wanted to do something different. But at that moment, you were the sole income provider. So talk about how pressurized that decision was to even attempt to transition. And then how did you handle that pressure and still move forward in trying to figure out how to transition into being self-employed?
That's a great question. And being that I was a financial advisor and I was used to planning, it wasn't like a willy-nilly decision where I just kind of stepped out on faith and I was like, oh, I'm just going to quit my job and we're not going to have any income and I'm going to see if this works. Instead, I started doing all of the things that I was doing, starting with writing on the side of my full-time job. I have decent negotiation skills, and that's some of the stuff that I try to teach, that business savviness to students and people in our community. So I had negotiated a 4-day work week. And I worked 32 hours. And so I had like every other Friday off, and then I would get up really early in the morning. So like 4:30, I would set my alarm for, and I'd get in an hour or two before I had to get in the shower and actually get ready for my day job. I'm not super good in the evening, so the morning was definitely my forte, but I know other people will do their kind of side hustling in the evenings. And then I use that time every other Friday, and it did dip into some weekend time. And so, you had to cut back socializing, which when you're a parent of young kids is kind of non-existent anyways, let's be real. But I basically eked out any extra time that I could in order to put into building this new business. Now, sometimes that's actually a good thing, because when you have limited amounts of time, you have to focus. You can't waste time and read all the things. You have to do the things that end up getting you closer to that end result goal. And so for me, I wanted to produce a certain amount of income in addition to what I was making in my full-time job in order to give me that security that I could do this. I could take that step and actually quit my job, which I did that same year. So I looked into the freelance writing on April 15th, 2014. I launched my website and started prospecting for clients in May. I think I landed my first couple of clients in June. And then I had to have a conversation with my office that fall, and I left work around Christmas time of that same year.
Wow.
So it was about 8 months total.
Wow. Amazing. And now you've been doing it ever since, right? I love this. So there are a lot of people that are at home, or maybe they don't stay at home. Maybe they're working just like you were working, and they kind of want to go into this whole virtual assistant thing. It sounds good. I know that you teach people how to be a successful virtual assistant. What actually is a virtual assistant?
That is a really good question, because most people will hear like VA as like our acronym, right? The initials of virtual assistant. And in the US, at least, they think of like the Veterans Administration. Like they get all like, what? You're talking about the government? No. So a virtual assistant is really just somebody like me, like you, that has services. They have skills that they can offer to a client that needs those services and those skills. And I categorize the kind of definition by 3 points. So it's somebody that has skills that they can offer. They get paid for those skills from the client, and they can work virtually, which is afar, basically anywhere that you have a laptop and an internet connection, right? That can be in your home office like I'm at today. We just returned from a 6-week trip down to South Padre Island, Texas. And so I was working down there. I haven't gotten overseas or anything fun like that yet, but totally on my bucket list. So you can take your work with you, or you can work from the comfort of your own home. You're, hiring yourself out as a contractor, a self-employed individual, and you're getting paid for that work.
So what are some work that maybe virtual assistants will do? What are some of their skills that they can apply? Like, are they answering emails?
Yeah, that was my niche as I got started. So I actually decided to, besides the writing part, and so freelance writing is kind of its own category. You can do copywriting, you can write the blog posts, you can do case studies, you can do white papers. But per the definition that we go by now, like freelance writing can fall under that virtual assistant category, right? So it can be anything from writing to doing email management and customer service, which was the second thing that I decided to do. And I just repurposed skills that I had. So I was a financial advisor, and I had this small practice, but I worked for a larger practice that was family-based and oriented. And they would travel as a family, especially in the summer, up to their cabin and do a lot of fishing and things like that. And so I would be left to man the fort. And that meant that I managed everybody's inboxes and all of kind of the customer questions and concerns that came in during that time when they were gone. And so when I was doing my online work, I was following somebody that I happened to realize he had a hard time keeping up with his email. So it seemed like he really wanted to get back to me, and I was a customer of his, but he had a hard time, doing that in a timely fashion. And so I just kind of recognized that need, politely brought it to his attention, and I asked to be hired, and he said yes. So that was my first kind of virtual assistant client. Email management and customer service is big for e-commerce or online businesses, because typically they don't have an office where they have all of these employees and cubicles and all that good stuff. So they're more open than ever to hiring people that, can do that from anywhere. And it's not necessarily phone-based, by the way. I take or make one phone call maybe once every 2 weeks or something like that. Otherwise, it's all handled via email communication. Social media is obviously hot, because every brand and business knows that they need to have a social media presence, but most entrepreneurs and small business owners have no interest in learning Facebook advertising or how to develop and grow a Pinterest presence or Instagram or YouTube or any of these things. Some of them do, and maybe they want to keep that in-house, but most people don't, because it's just another thing that they have to learn. But they know that they need to be out there, and they know there's also a potential to reach their own target market in that area. There's people that help with podcasts and with webinars and online event management. Project management is something that I think is going to blow up because, again, small business owners and entrepreneurs, they wear a lot of different hats and they're very creative, and a lot of them are serial entrepreneurs, and sometimes they have trouble managing all of the pieces, or maybe even other people that have to deliver work in order to move these projects forward. So those are a few, but bookkeeping, you name it, there are a ton of different service offerings. We actually have a list we compiled that's 150 plus, so that we can always add to them, right? That you can download from our site. And we can link to that in the show notes if you want.
We'll definitely have a link to that resource in the show notes. Now, it sounds like, you described the responsibilities can go in a lot of different directions. So for someone brand new, how do they properly kind of self-evaluate themselves to see which type of virtual assistant jobs they should pursue?
Yeah, that's a great question. So definitely perusing a list like that will help you to spark some ideas. Another thing that I would do is to take a look at your last job or your current job or any employment that you've had, and think about the things that you did and that you enjoyed doing, and start just writing down a list of those tasks. You can ask friends and family that know you well to say, hey, what am I really good at, right? What are some of the things that, we've worked on together, or that you just feel like are strengths? You could even go as far as taking one of the personality tests, like a strengths finder, and you could figure out, okay, here are some of the things that I could really help other business owners to do. Another idea, if you have business owners, entrepreneurs in your life, is you could interview them and be like, hey, what's on your to-do list? I heard this tip from, I think, Noah Kagan, if you know his name at all. He's fabulous. And he had said, ask those people, what's been on your to-do list for the last 2 weeks? Obviously, it's important enough to that person where it still makes their cut for the to-do list, but it's not urgent enough where they haven't actually done it. And then I would also take all of these, things that you might be interested in, and then you can prioritize them based on what your areas of expertise are, or what your passion points or topics are. However you want to kind of reorganize that list so that you can come up with somewhere between 2 and 5 to focus in on, where you can learn more about them or trial them out.
Have you thought about starting a website or blog but didn't know where to begin? Well, Bluehost is the solution to all your website needs. Hosting over 2 million websites worldwide, we get people online, including you. We're so confident. Here's what we want to offer: a free domain name when you purchase a hosting account, 24/7 support from our in-house trained experts however you need it, and over $150 in offers to help you grow your platform with Google, Bing, and others, all for as low as $2.95 a month. Wait a minute, is that less than $3? Yep. Bluehost, providing you with affordable, reliable web hosting solutions. Get started today by visiting hisorhermoney.com/Bluehost.
What type of time commitment should a VA expect to do in order to see a return or any type of success?
I think at minimum 5 hours a week. would probably be what I would say. And then it can be all the way up to, I don't know, 60, 80 hours. It depends on how much you want to work and how much money you want to make. But there's a lot of virtual assistants that are just looking for that side hustle, looking to earn a couple hundred, $1,000 more that they can bring into their family household finances. And then there's other people on the other end, like myself, that really wanted to do a career change.
I guess I kind of want to go along those same lines with the next question. You have a lot of students that have gone through your courses and have learned how to become successful virtual assistants. So for somebody considering this based upon what they're hearing right now, what are some reasonable income goals or expectations that they can kind of expect to see if they put in the work?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. So there's a limited research that exists out there, but the average North American VA is charging between $25 and $40 an hour. I've seen people charge as low as $10 an hour, and I've seen people charge over $100 an hour. It comes down to what services you're offering, how much experience you have, your level of expertise. So one of the points I was going to make earlier and I forgot is that, part of, I feel like my goal or mission in life is to bust through the stereotype that a virtual assistant is a glorified secretary or admin assistant. There are definitely admin tasks that small business owners want to pass off to somebody. And those would be the things that wouldn't involve as much maybe skill or critical thinking, strategicness. And so they would probably fall to the lower end of the pay scale. So the higher the level of like consulting and strategy, and sometimes even just the return on investment that it can produce for the business owner, then the more that you can charge.
Are there any prerequisites that a VA or a potential VA must go through in order to take on this type of business or side hustle?
You have to be savvy enough with a computer. If you aren't comfortable Googling things or, fixing minor tech issues like rebooting your computer to try and get a program to work, logging in and out, clearing your cache, those are things that you'll learn those kind of tips and tricks very easily. But you want to be comfortable around a computer for sure. And the tools, the applications, people are always nervous or apprehensive about that part, is they feel like they need to know all of the tools that they might need to use with a business owner or in a certain industry. And that's pretty impossible to learn prior to working with somebody because there's so many tools for any given system. So if you take email management, like an email service provider, like newsletter creation, that sort of thing. Like think about all the different companies that are major players in that space. We have MailChimp, we have ConvertKit, we have Drip, we have Infusionsoft. The list goes on, Constant Contact. So you wouldn't be an expert in each one of those things, nor would you want to be. You need to be familiar maybe with why somebody has an email list, why they're trying to build one, right? So that they can communicate to their target market and turn leads into prospects. But having to know each one of those interfaces before you start working with a client is definitely not necessary. Once you get into one, typically you can figure out how to use another because they're similar enough. They all have their nuances, mind you, but there's also training, any kind of tool or software. They're going to want their user to be successful using that tool, so they'll continue to use it and be subscribed and, earn revenue from it. So that's a question I get a lot and a hesitation I get a lot, but I feel like most programs are going to be cloud-based, so you don't have to download special software or anything like that to your computer. You just need to make sure that your computer is in good working order. So the slower it takes you to load things, the more frustrated you'll get, and you can't really, bill out for having a slow computer, in my opinion, right? And then internet, just reliable and being able to access the internet is definitely a prerequisite. Some of the things that we talk about that make for a good virtual assistant is somebody that's organized typically is going to do better. So managing our own customer service for Horkey Handbook, sometimes we can tell if somebody has greater odds of success than others because they take the time to read and digest what our instructions are, right? So if you hurry through everything that you read and you don't take instructions well, you might not do well as a virtual assistant. For example, clients are also looking for just reliability. That's probably the number one thing that I hear on the client end of things is they want somebody that's communicative and reliable. And that should be easy, right? But somehow there's this other stereotype of freelancers being flaky. Freelancing is, just another word for being self-employed, a contractor, a virtual assistant, or whatever. You're a self-employed individual that's contracting out your services. And I don't know where these people come from or how they ever landed clients, but they're giving the rest of us a bad name. It's those few bad apples thing. And I don't know. Most people that want to be a virtual assistant are reliable. They are communicative. They want to do a great job for their clients. So,
in addition to not being consistent or communicative, are there any other common mistakes that you see budding virtual assistants making when they're trying to get their business off the ground?
Yeah, I think not putting themselves out there is probably the most detrimental. So sometimes because we're afraid of hard things or rejection, we don't take the necessary actions that we need to in order to build our business. So we won't pitch for clients. Do we need to take a moment? Keep going. All right. We won't put ourselves out there for hire. We won't, have conversations about what it is that we do because we're, afraid to talk about it, nervous to talk about it, that we're going to say the wrong thing, whatever the case may be. So that's the biggest mistake, I feel like, is that people don't put themselves out there. They don't give themselves the opportunity to be successful. They spend all of the time trying to make this perfect website, which you guys know, there's no perfect website. Your website's an evolution. When you first shipped it, it looked horrible, but you didn't know that at the time because you didn't know what horrible looked like. So
as far as putting yourselves out there when it comes to being a virtual assistant, are there like platforms, websites that you can find these jobs that they should be kind of pursuing?
So we do have a course that's 30 days or less to virtual assistant success. We cover at least 7 different ways to prospect for clients, but I'll highlight a few for you guys. There's definitely the marketplace route, which is your Upwork, it's your people per hour, it's your Fiverr type of environment, which I am not a huge fan of. It can work, and it does work really well for certain people. And if that's what it takes for you to put yourself out there and get started, like, go for it. Set up a profile, see how it works. You probably won't stay there forever because typically the people that are looking to find clients there are not looking to pay the highest price or maybe look long-term. Some of the things that we're looking for in our clients, is building a sustainable business. And typically that's working with people on a more recurring basis rather than only one-time projects. Like, that can be hard to build in predictable income if you're only doing one-time projects that are always ending, right? So you can definitely go the marketplace route. There is the agency model. So like an EA help, executive assistant help would be an example of that. That has its challenges too, but some people get their start in that way. One of the challenges is that once you start working with a client, and if that's your regular long-term thing, there's a middleman between what they pay the company and what you're charging. And so you're both kind of losing long-term in that scenario if you continue to work together for years and years and years, right? So as a virtual assistant, I would prefer to get the whole piece of the pie, not just a portion of the pie that my client is willing to pay. What it comes down to, in my opinion, is relationship building is going to be the best long-term play. It's always keeping your eyes out there for opportunities. I like to say always be marketing, and not like in a hustler, like negative connotated way. Like it's not all about you. And I think that's where other people go wrong sometimes, is they're so focused on finding clients and building a business that they end up talking about themselves rather than asking a bunch of questions and finding out what are the needs of the person that they're talking with. So one of the recommendations we make in the course is to start going to in-person networking events, which is weird, right? Because you're trying to build a virtual business. You don't want to go talk to people in person, but it is helpful as an exercise. And I always encourage people to go in with the mindset of you're not looking for a client. You're looking to go and talk with some really cool people because you're a really cool person. And those are the people that I want to do business with, is people that are like-minded, that we have something in common, that there can be a little bit of a maybe personal relationship intertwined with our business relationship. because we're all doing life together, right? And why not enjoy the work that you're doing by enjoy the people that you're working with? So in-person networking can be a great exercise. You don't need to do it for all of time, but it's a way that forces you to talk about your business on the spot. And again, it's a really great way to get practice asking questions and showing authentic interest in somebody else, because people like to help people that they like.
Good tips, good advice. Love that. So being the fact that online entrepreneurship can be very fluid or it changes, right? How important is it that one, invest in growth? So when they want to become a virtual assistant, how important is it to always get like training or always be up to date with the current trends?
Yeah, I think it's hugely important. And that goes with really any industry. What's weird is we don't always feel that way on the employee side. So I'm not sure what your guys' background and story is at this point, but we're kind of conditioned in a corporate American environment to somewhat get a job and then keep that job. And sometimes you don't always put forth more and more effort unless you're looking to get a promotion or whatever. But I think it's important, whether you're in that environment or in a self-employed environment, to always be upping your skills and doing the best job that you can. And so once you get to the point where you know what services you're going to offer, you've started to maybe work with some clients, and those are the service offerings that you're like committing to, and you can always change your mind. You can try, doing X, Y, and Z and offering that to clients. Find out that you don't like it for whatever reason, or you don't want to do it anymore. This is super common. And then you pivot and you shift gears because you found something else that really excites you at that time. But I think that to keep interested and passionate about your work, you have to keep learning and you have to keep up with the changes in technology, which are never going to stop. And that's a good thing because we get more efficient and whatever, and we're constantly challenged by that. But once you figure out what it is that you want to do, at least for that time, I would double down on it and become as good as you can by continuing to learn new things, continuing to take training, continuing to be plugged in whatever way that looks like for your industry.
And I know you have a lot of material on your website that can kind of shorten the learning curve if people are interested in doing this. Can you talk about some of the things that they'll find there if they come check you out?
Sure. So we talked about that list of 150 plus services. If you go to horkeyhandbook.com/blog, we actually have a search bar there and you can type in a couple of different terms. So if we were to pull that up right now, I can tell you about some of the more recent content if my internet wants to. Oh, it's telling me the window is already opened. Talk about being able to navigate your way online, right? But we do have really, really great content on the blog. And what's fun is I usually hire people within our community to guest post in addition to our team and myself writing things. But the most recent article right now, as of this taping, is Want to Keep Clients Happy, 8 Simple Tips to Improve Your Client Experience. So not only landing clients, but also continuing to grow that relationship, which is going to make you referable, is always a good thing. We also have some student success stories on there as well, people that have gone through our courses and material and have been able to put it to work. That's always fun for us to share. We have a lot of content geared towards freelance writers too. So everything from the mindset aspect of starting and growing a business to practical skills. So different service offerings will highlight, or, talking about invoicing clients, for example, or the cheapest ways to get paid. We're working on a post about that right now.
So in your professional opinion, who should be possibly considering virtual assistant or even taking your course? Like what type of qualities should someone, maybe they already possess those qualities and maybe they never thought about becoming a virtual assistant, but maybe there is, something out there for them to do that. So in your opinion, who would that person be?
Yeah, so you need to be a self-starter because if you're not, I think that you're just more geared towards having a boss rather than being your own boss. So having clients is different than having a boss, but it's similar in some ways too. here's the great thing about being a virtual assistant is you get to choose what clients to work with just as much as they get to choose if they want to hire you. So just because somebody wants to hire you doesn't mean that you have to say yes, right? You have to want to be self-employed to some extent, meaning that you're going to be the one that's responsible for managing and growing said business. So you have to have a handle on things like accounting. You can totally farm that out, but you need to keep track of your income and your expenses. It doesn't mean that you have to be super good with numbers. You just need to be able to track them so that when it comes tax time, that you can get those numbers off to an accountant if you're not going to prepare that yourself. And I think, one of the biggest misconceptions is people want to work from home and they are interested in becoming a virtual assistant, but it is up to you to go and find clients. Nobody is ever going to do the growing of the business part for you, but we'll give you that shortcut to success as far as where to look and what to offer and all of that good stuff.
If somebody's interested in becoming a virtual assistant based on what you shared today, what are a couple of practical steps that they need to take after listening to this interview?
That's a great question. So definitely come on over, check out the blog, download that list of 150 services that you can offer. You can go ahead and, if you wanted to print that out, I don't know how many people have printers in their homes anymore, but you can use one of those markup tools online and highlight the different things or get out a notepad and kind of take those things down. And then I would also brainstorm what types of clients that you might want to work with. We actually do have a workbook too, that if you download that list, you'll get a nice special offer that you can purchase it for a lot cheaper, but it's called Jumpstart Your Virtual Assistant Career. And it walks you through 5 different tangible, tactical steps to kind of do those first steps of getting your business going and really dipping your toe. And then we have obviously the 30 days or less to virtual assistant success course that will walk you really step by step through the process of starting your business.
So Gina, tell everybody, how has becoming a virtual assistant and actually starting your business changed your life? I mean, you started this back in 2014, and so now it's 4 years later. So how has it totally changed your life as well as your family?
Yeah. So, the flexibility is what most people crave and want to start this business for. And we, like I said earlier, just got back from spending 6 weeks down in South Padre Island, Texas, which is about as close to Mexico as you can get with still being in the States. And we live in Minnesota. It's winter right now. It's starting to be spring, which is wonderful now that we're back home. But we got to take our family down there and rent a condo and go to the beach every day and go to the pool every day and hang out. And I could fit in my work when I needed to. This is our 3rd year doing so. We actually took our son out of kindergarten. And next year we're booked to go back, and our daughter will be in kindergarten and our son will be in 1st grade. And we have to unenroll them and re-enroll them. I don't know if we'll stay in the public school system long term or not. We like it, but we also like to travel. So that part has been awesome, and the fact that our goal for my husband is not to ever have a traditional job again, neither one of us. And again, there's nothing wrong with traditional employment, except for that's just not what we want for our life. So we've really been able to design a life based on the flexibility of the work rather than taking the work first and then designing our life around that, if that makes sense. And it's introduced us to, again, just really awesome people. One of my best friends and I have a side business with her. Her name is Kristen. She's down in Nashville, Tennessee. I would have never met her if it wasn't through this whole journey. And we're total BFFs. It's amazing. We get each other. So, I mean, there's really great rewards, and most of it comes down to people. And, you get to work with really cool people as a virtual assistant, provided you find them. And then, I've forged relationships with other like-minded people that are also striving for their own individualized lifestyle. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Okay. So if people want to connect with you on social media, where can they find you?
Yep, we have a Facebook page, which I think is just /Horkey Handbook. Our Twitter handle is @Horkey Handbook. I married into that wonderful last name. It's Horkey, which is German, I believe, and then handbook, and then horkeyhandbook.com.
Awesome. Gina, this has been super helpful. Yes. We know that a lot of people are headed to your website to find out more details about how to make this happen. So we really appreciate you taking time to explain the world of virtual assistants to us. Thank you.
And let me just say this again, everything, all the resources that was mentioned in this podcast, if you're watching it via video, it will be in the description box. 150 plus whatever that was. I know, it was a lot. I know that. So like 150 ideas on how you can get started virtual assistant. You want to make sure that you check out the links in the description box or the show notes.
Well, Gina, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.